President, thank you, honorable members. Allow me to continue in Spanish. I feel much more comfortable. Les he escuchado con mucha.
I listened to you very carefully, for more than an hour, and I took note of the extent to which viewpoints differ with regard to this dramatic conflict. We're living at a dramatic time in the history of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and from a humanitarian point of view, from a political point of view, this is the case. We must make efforts to go beyond emotions and seek solutions. My position is not simple, members. I represent the common positions we have on foreign policy as the European Union when we have a common position. But when there is no common position, I try to contribute to building those shared positions. Sometimes I'm asked questions I cannot answer because my personal answer has no value, no more than it does for me as an individual. Now, as a representative of the political institution I represent, there is no response because institutions differ, and we saw this at the UN General Assembly in the vote. We've just seen it in the General Affairs Council, and we'll certainly see it at the UN once again this evening. The European Council later this week will address this and will have a discussion. We have some states with one position, others with another position, and some states feel a particular responsibility with regard to Israel's security because this is part of their own existence. Germany, for instance, in light of its past responsibilities in the Holocaust. That historic accountability. But what we need to try and do is to find solutions. We need to give our words meaning. We must not misuse adjectives, because sometimes hyperbole takes us further away from the meaning, and we end up with an approximate idea. Mr. Bütikofer clarified a point, but I think the international community can agree that the political solution can only be achieved through a two-state solution. This was the case with regard to China. All states can agree. In Barcelona, all states, Arab and Muslim states minus one. And I think this is the joint position of the international community, that a political solution has to involve creating a state for Israel. They have one. And a state for Palestine. They do not have one. So, to hear from the Prime Minister of Israel time and again that they are against this is to be taken note of, and that solution is the best guarantee to stop this happening. So, how can it be said that one might be against this political solution that the international community wants? Is that not just logical to support that solution, to build two states? If one person says they're against that solution, well, they're against that solution. That's not to disagree with the government of Israel. That's simply logic. Israel has a right to defend itself. Of course it does. We all acknowledge that. But the right to defense, like all rights, have limits. And the problem isn't saying time and again that Israel has a right to defend itself according to international law. we have to ask ourselves whether international law is being respected by Israel. And that is a question we all need to answer. I won't answer that question because there is no unanimity about that either. Opinions differ. But I believe there are limits to that right. And it is not morally justifiable, I believe, to kill so many innocent people. That cannot be justified. And when I hear the figures, when Israel acknowledges that it's killed 5,000 Hamas fighters, we're talking about 20,000 civilian victims, half of them children. The proportion comparing the objective of defending yourself and the civilian victims, I think it's right for that to be cause for concern. And this is not anti-Semitic. I do not believe there are anti-Semites here. Nobody is against Jewish people just because they are Jewish. But what I think is disgusting is to be against a person because of their ethnic, or religious, political background. But I think we do have a right to criticize the way in which the Israeli government is behaving without being criticized of being anti-Semitic. And I demand that right to demand for a Palestinian state to exist without it being claimed that I am questioning the existence of the State of Israel. I demand the right to call terrorist organizations like Hamas what they are and to condemn them and to acknowledge the huge death that is being caused and that we must put an end to this so that we can have an end. Because if there are no alternatives, there is no proportionality, there is no respect for human rights. So, as we discuss now at this critical time in history, we shouldn't think about being on one side or the other. We must find a solution which now stops there being further victims. And how we do that is by condemning the attacks. By doing that now, by stopping the fighting now. Another thing happened that truly shocked me. UNRWA is part of the problem, somebody said. Part of the problem. UNRWA is the one supporting 5 million refugees. And UNRWA has lost 170 members of its staff in the bombings. Most of them lost their families too. 1.9 million people are homeless, wandering in the streets. And UNRWA is the one that is giving the minimum support that the international community can provide. They are the problem. Let's show some respect for these people who are being there for them. Let us show respect for the United Nations. Honourable members, now is the time for us to commit politically to seeking a solution. We must avoid falling backwards into history and looking for whether the egg or the chicken came first. What was the original cause of something that has been going on for over 100 years now? We need to find solutions for those who are still alive, and that will require great efforts to get past the hatred and the violence, which will always be there, because eradicating Hamas, perhaps, but this will not be a solution. And those who have been trying to eradicate terrorist movements for many years know that this is true because they have never achieved it. Seeking accountability, well, the responsibilities are broadly shared. Anyone who wishes to stop the establishment of a Palestinian state, anyone who believes there should never be a Palestinian state, must support Hamas and must transfer money to Hamas. That is what is part of a strategy that has taken place to finance Hamas. Whose strategy? Mr. Netanyahu's. In March 2019, he said that that was his strategy. Thank you
very much, High Representative Borrell. This debate is now closed. And